mother's role changed throughout the years?
Morning, both. I suppose quite significantly. I mean, the core of a mother, the nurturing, the protective side, that doesn't change because it's sort of hardwired into most mums to be like that. But they're much more independent. They're very much more likely to go to work, have their children at a later stage. Then they tend to sort of think for themselves. They can have their own political views. They don't have to follow on from their partners. They're a greater contributor to household income than they were before. But interestingly, I looked at a survey recently, and it did say that in spite of that the greater number of mothers, of course, now working, they've actually spent more time with their children than they did, say, a generation ago, which seems a bit counterintuitive, but actually it's because they now have, all sorts of devices, if you like, to help keep your house clean. They're not out there scrubbing brass doorsteps with a brush or whatever. We now are able to sort of clean more easily than we did back then. And also partners, husbands, they're much more likely to be involved as well in household chores and childcare and so on. So I think still they've got that very traditional nurturing role, but they're much more independent and have lives for themselves as individuals rather than just being somebody's mum.
Yeah, you see, I don't know what to make of it, and it's not a very PC thing to say in today's world. I mean, I'm not against working mums, obviously. That would be crackers. But, I mean, I heard something on the radio when I was driving home from the show yesterday, actually, and on the radio, and they had interviews with children about their working, what they thought of their mums who were all working mums. And every single one of those children said, "Oh, I wish mum was at home more."
Aww.
Every one.
I mean, it's difficult because, of course, most children want to see their mums all the time. They want them to be the primary caregiver rather than perhaps being out with a childminder. And it's difficult when they're very little. But as they get older and you then encourage your daughters to have a career, to do well at school, to have the potential to achieve, I think it probably gets into perspective more for them when they're a little bit older, that's why mum works. Firstly, we have to get the money in so that we can survive, particularly in this day and age. And secondly, they like the feeling of going to work. It doesn't mean they love their children any less. But it's important for women to be independent. But I know what you're saying. Every child, I used to feel, I was very lucky. I think I worked part-time when my two were little. So I made every moment of the 2 days that I wasn't working. I think that would be harder now because there wasn't so much email around or such pressure to be working in some way, even if you weren't actually working. But I just stopped work for 2 days each week, and they were very important to me.
Oh, and Jo, you've got some lovely flowers in the background. Are those from your children?
Sadly not. They're from me to me.
Oh, good for you.
No,
they'll be coming, Jo, I'm sure. They'll be coming.
They came yesterday. One came the sort of letterbox flowers. So I'm trying to stop them looking so squished. And they're in a different vase. But my older son's going to see his future mother-in-law today. And my youngest is taking me out for lunch. So, so I get to
a very happy Mother's Day to you, Jo. And one thing I think that has changed in terms of this role of a mother is kids are at home for a lot longer now, aren't they? I mean, back in the olden days, you'd be out the house at 16, 18, you'd be buying your own house. I mean, now it's so expensive to buy a home. Some parents have got their very grown-up kids still living at home, haven't they? You're a hands-on parent for a lot longer.
Right. It's a good point. They are mums in terms of having their children in their homes for much, much longer. And actually, I think some poor mums who may be looking after their own elderly mothers or parents, as well as having these older children at home who can't leave, as you say, because they can't afford to go anywhere, means that you extend that motherhood role. And also perhaps, I think it's harder for some boys, but girls as well, to be as independent as they should be at a certain age. Because when you're living at home, I don't know if all mums are like me, but when mine were living with me till they're a bit older. I'm still fussing over them. You know, I'm still treating them like they're younger than they are. And of course, they needed to have flown the nest, but just weren't able to.
Things about when you do go home. You get fussed over. I love it. Jo, thank you again. I know we're catching up with you a little bit later on as well, but for now, thanks very much indeed. It's funny what things were like in the olden days, Ellie. You wouldn't believe. We didn't have mobile phones and nothing.